Hey guys, it's M4J here, and welcome back to the M4J Network here on OpenTTD. Not my best intro, but there we are. Right, today we are working on making some of these freight terminals around the network look a little bit nicer, a little bit better. And I'm actually starting with one that I'd already made look nicer and a little bit better. And that is Guard City South Freight Terminal right here. Now, you might be wondering, why am I rebuilding this again? One of the main reasons for that, or for me at least to be doing that, is the more I looked at it, like, it's a big site and all, and it had platforms for every industry and things like that. But the more I looked at it, the more I just thought it's not really well utilized. The loops looked a bit stupid. What was it? So yeah, the loops looked a bit stupid. The platforms themselves were very, very underdecorated. And I just felt like I could do a little bit better. So this was one of the first that we rebuilt. I think it was either the first or the second. North might have been the first one. But since then, I've also built is it Rudworth, down in the southeast of the map. We've rebuilt Morningpool Falls, which is still my personal favourite, even after this one. I just love the fact that I managed to fit so much into such a small space. And I think that's when I really excel at the moment. You know, right now, if I have huge areas of land, and you'll see that here as well, I really do just use all of it. I don't really make much of an effort to keep it all contained. But with Morningpool Falls, there wasn't much I could do because we already had, the station, the canals, the railway running in and out of the station, and I felt very, 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 very constrained with what I could and couldn't do. And I think that actually led to some of my best work. So I'm not downplaying this at all, by the way. I still think I did a good job here. But overall, I do still think Morningpool Falls is my personal favourite in terms of overall design. But yeah, this is Guard City South Freight Terminal. For those that don't know, North and South are split by raw and manufactured. So there's a little bit of a mix in certain places, and you'll see that here as well. But most of North is for raw materials, things like coal, oil, livestock, wood, wool, anything, plant fibers, anything that's straight from the source pretty much. Whereas South here is for things that are manufactured. So timber, engineering supplies, farm supplies, manufacturing supplies, goods, metal, petrol, chemicals, that kind of thing. Now, as I said, there is some crossover. We are building an oil terminal here, for example. Slight spoiler alert. But it's not replacing the existing ones. It's just to run alongside the existing ones. Basically, if you've got a facility that can contain petrol and chemicals, you're probably going to have one that can contain oil as well. And that's kind of the thought process I had whilst building this. And that's why we end up with an oil terminal here as well. This one's a lot more split than some of the other terminals. You'll see me constantly changing what each platform is actually for. So to start with, you will see the topmost platforms on the left-hand side, the west side, and also the second from top on the east side, the right-hand side, are for goods and all the different supplies and materials. So building materials, manufacturing supplies, engineering supplies, farm supplies, that kind of thing. Eventually, though, I had more platforms than industries, so I started to split it up a little bit more. So we actually have a whole set of platforms now just for building materials. We also have a whole set of platforms just for farm supplies. And I'm a big fan of that. I think that's actually worked out pretty well. Goods and food have their own section. I could potentially split goods and food as well, because I've always thought of goods as being like perishables, but it's not really when you think about it. It's actually things like TVs, fridges, washing machines. Not just white goods, but electronics as well. And from that, I think it would make more sense to actually have goods and food split. So I might put goods with some of the supplies maybe, or I might move food somewhere else. I don't know. But the good thing about this setup, it is fairly modular. I can move things as and when I want to. I've just got to go in and change what cargo is allowed through on each signal. I have tested the new terminal. So far, everything appears to be working, which is good. We've also got a whole series of docks now that have been built, each one for a different part of the terminal. So, for example, there's one actually I've not talked about yet, which is the northeast corner of the terminal, and that is for sort of like classified materials. So in this case, we've had this uranium power station for as long as I can remember. Uranium, not I don't know why I thought I said something different there. Uranium power station, basically a nuclear power station. I don't know why I said uranium. Nuclear power station just happens to use uranium, I suppose, so it's still relevant. We've had this whole uranium industry, and I've not really used it much. But I'm going to start using it from now on, purely because I have this new area. I don't know why I'm struggling to speak. I'm kind of watching the video and getting distracted at the same time. It's one of my problems. Also, I'm recording this on the desktop using Premiere, so hopefully the audio matches up with the video still. I'm going to try not to talk about things too much on the video, just in case that does happen. It does go out of sync again. And I'm actually going to follow through with that this time, because in the past I've said that and then continue to talk about what's on the screen. Uranium. I want to have uranium power stations across the map, because the power stations also accept coal and I want to say wood or timber or something like that. There's a third one that they accept, which is kind of random. I can't remember what it is. But because of that, I've got this like top secret area in the northeast corner of the terminal, which is purely for uranium and I think it's nuclear material, I think is the other one. So basically both sides of the coin, you know, the raw material and also the manufactured product. I suppose it's technically manufactured. It's a spent fuel rods, basically, is what that is. And yeah, that's what that part is. And I've used the high security station type, and I've kind of enclosed the docks are already technically enclosed, but I'm going to put more enclosure on them, shall we say. Maybe have like little 1 tile wide canals going in and out of that area. And also reduce the number of docks, because we're not really going to have that many ships using it. The canal here as well has been widened. As you can see, it's now 5 tiles wide instead of the previous 3. I am going to use a buoy system for navigation, because as I was trying to say before I got distracted by my little tangent, we now have a dock for every industry type, basically. Every cargo type that comes down to this terminal has its own dock. And I think my favorite one, again, slight spoiler alert, my favorite one is the carport that I've not actually yet built on screen. You will see me build it shortly. Again, I'm not going to talk about what's on screen because it will fall out of sync. But there's like a car area. You see these photos. You know, sometimes when the car industry takes a little hit, you see these photos of huge dockyards just full of parked cars that haven't been bought and therefore can't be transported because there's nowhere for them to go. Obviously, hopefully, my cars will get transported. But I wanted to do something like that because I think, again, realistic port, those are the kinds of things that you would transport. So I think in terms of the game, they come under goods or something like that. But in terms of the in real life, they would be cars. So we'll have a huge carport. We'll also have there's a big metal area. There's a huge oil terminal and petrol terminal that you'll see me build. Chemicals are actually separate from oil and petrol. I put them elsewhere. I'm going to lie to you now and say I thought that was the better option. But truth be told, I kind of forgot about chemicals at the time. And I had things like, I had a mail area. And I was going to use this as like the southern mail terminal for the city. And then the more I thought about it, the more I thought, actually, kind of need something else here, but I wasn't sure what. And I was going to put something like wool or plant fibers or something perishable. And then it was only when I finished the oil terminal that I started looking around and realized, hang on a minute, I haven't actually got any chemical platforms. So that's now chemicals. You'll see me build these little balloon loops as well. This one here is actually too small. The one at the southern end is too small, so I do go back and fix that before anyone says anything. And you'll also notice that the thumbnail of this video might be different. I might come up with a new design. I've been doing a lot of YouTube SEO stuff this morning with my colleagues at Racing Games, and it's kind of given me a bout of inspiration to actually change my channel as well, because I think my channel's become a bit stagnant, mainly because I haven't uploaded properly in a long time, but also because just not had the creativity to change my thumbnails and things like that. And I am going to rebrand slightly for the rest of this year. Football Manager's coming out. I've got some ideas for that. The beta's actually released now, so I might start a new series this week, maybe next. There's a couple of other games. Railroads Online is one that I've seen people playing. I've really gotten into Blue Wizard series on that. I'm going to try not to fall into the trap of having too many games on the go at any one time. There are some that I might drop because I don't think I'm getting the views. Railroute, for example, I'm just not getting the views. I'm not particularly enjoying the game right now either. I think it's a little too challenging in places, and it's just not getting the views. So I think that one's on the chopping block. But this one definitely isn't, because I love this game. And there's always one game that I'll be sentimental about, and I think it's going to be this one. It's the game I've played the most over the years, and I still think it's the flagship series of the channel. It pulls in the most views, it pulls in the most subscribers. Transport Fever is doing very well as well. Transport Fever 2, actually, to be more precise, is doing very well. But I love this game. Going off on a complete tangent here. What was I saying? Oh yeah, thumbnail. So you'll notice in the thumbnail that the terminal is actually a little bit more decorated still. It's got more eye candy. I actually went around after. So I hit the station cap limit during this video. You might see the red message pop up at some point. So I had to take some stuff out, and I went in and replaced it with eye candy. So it is still decorated. It's not like huge brown tiles or anything like that. It just meant I couldn't do it as one station. I didn't really want to split this into two stations because I don't think that's the solution. If my terminals are too big, I would rather go and cut down the size than having to use the split method. Eye candy is a good way of filling things in as well. But yeah, I know I've split the one down in the southeast, but I've kind of split it in a way that raw is one side and manufactured is the other. And if I haven't done that fully, I will go back and change it. I just felt like it was an unnecessary thing to do, to have to split it like that. But yeah, anyway, going off on a tangent again. So you see all of these terminals here. Imagine they're all separate terminals. So they've all got like separate ownership, say. So back in the 80s-ish, around BR times, you did have the start of privatization. So BR mostly ran the freight sector here in the UK, but other companies were starting to get involved. Freightliner were one of the first. There's a bit of a confliction here, because BR had their own sector, which I believe was called Freightliner, and then Freightliner, the company, came in and I believe took it over when privatization first started. If I've got that wrong, I apologize. I'm not that much up to speed on rail freight history still. But where I'm going with this is, you can imagine, so this is, as you know, the M4J network is set sort of in the mid-90s, where around 96-ish, because we've got things like Eurostars operating, but we've also got a lot of stock from like the 50s and 60s still knocking around. And the story goes with freight that M4J Rail Freight is technically the state-owned rail freight operator, but each of these terminals can be operated by, or owned and operated by, separate companies. So, for example, there might be an oil company that's in charge of the oil terminal, and M4J Rail Freight, or whoever it is that takes over, will be responsible for paying access charges to access the terminals. That is something that happens in real life. It is prototypical. Mainly in the rail sector, it's things like I think it's London Overground pay access charges to London Underground to use things like the Watford DC lines as far as Hayes and Harlington, I want to say, but that's not right, is it? Wherever the Bakerloo line terminates. I just chose a really bad example. But also down to Richmond, Wimbledon, anywhere where the overground shares tracks with the underground. I think it's Arriva, is it? Operates London Overground. They pay access charges to London Underground. Likewise, you also have, I believe Crossrail will pay access charges to Network Rail. So TfL would pay access charges to Network Rail to use. In fact, is it going to be? It's not really Network Rail anymore, is it? It's GBR, which I still don't like, by the way, as a name. But there we are. They'll pay access charges to be able to use the rails. I'm talking about something that I've not really done much research into, and I think it's starting to show. So yeah, okay. Besides the rail freight terminals themselves, again, each one, imagine they're all part of the same complex, but each one is operated separately. That's what I was trying to say. So there are some that are like huge container ports and span like 2 or 3 individual terminals. And then you've got things like the uranium area, the metal area, the oil area. So imagine the building materials one is operated by a building company. Trying to think of one off the top of my head. Don't really want to name drop any, to be honest, but yeah, you know which ones I'm talking about. And then you've got like engineering supplies. You can imagine that's something like JCB, or maybe even something like Haas that make like CNC equipment and mills and lathes and that sort of thing. They'd have their own like warehouses, own terminal, own rail access. Then you've got the marshalling yard, which has been built in the northeast corner where that balloon loop is. And then we've also got the rail freight depot, which is built in the southwest corner where that balloon loop is. And again, they're 2 separate facilities. Their usage right now, I'm not too sure about. The marshalling yard, I would like it if in the future the shunting patch was added to JGR, which I don't see happening anytime soon, because I don't think it's stable still. In fact, I don't even know if it's still being developed. But if something like that were to exist, that would be awesome. The marshalling yard would come in handy then for that. The depot is actually meant to be... So I said in the last episode that I want there to be a scenario now where I don't need to run trains into an actual depot anymore. I can just use the fake ones that I've set up, and that be like a surrogate depot. So trains just go and sit there basically and wait for their next turn. I want that to happen with this depot in the southwest corner. So trains will come to the terminal, they will unload, and then they will go sit in the depot for however many hours until their next turn. I think I've got 9 tracks in that depot. The 3 center ones are bi-directional, and then the 6 outer ones are unidirectional. The east side runs south, the west side runs north. Then as I said, the 3 center ones run north and south. And then trains will go there and sit and wait for their next turn. So there's capacity for 9 trains there. We could use the marshalling yard for a similar thing. I think is it 13 tracks in the marshalling yard, maybe 11. So extra capacity there as well. So we got a total of between 20 and 23, 24 trains that could be stored here at any one time. And since I'm planning on running freight trains right the way across the network, once the database is prepped and ready, we'll start doing that. The good thing is, so if you're interested, by the way, in joining the project, I have set up a new chat on the Discord called, I think it's called M4J Network Database Project or something like that. You will see it. It's in the same area as the M4J Network chat. If you're an amateur coder like myself, if you're a more professional coder like the other guys who are on the project right now, feel free to join the chat. George has posted all of the files that he's worked on so far there. I will at some point set up either a GitHub or some kind of repository for us to use instead, rather than just posting it all on Discord. Right now there's only 3 of us working on it, so having it all on Discord was just a way for us all to see what's actually going on. But yeah, please do join. There's some really encouraging words I'm hearing about this right now. The fact that we might be having to release our own patch of the game in order to get the game to actually talk to the database, which again I didn't know was possible. I mentioned this last week. If that is the case and it works, then that is absolutely amazing. I'm very, very excited about that possibility. But also to just being able to finally timetable trains as they're meant to be timetabled. So right now, the system I use, it has worked up till now, but I've never really been happy with it. I've always been looking for an alternative method. And for those of you who aren't aware, this database was actually inspired by, there's a YouTube channel called McKinley Model Railway. It's a group of guys building a model railway in the team leader's house. And they have a database where they store information about pretty much everything. So because it's a model railway, they have things like, do the points work, do the signals work? And that's all stored on the database. It fires out a signal, and then the individual components react to the signal, and then that's logged in the database. But you've also got things like the train timetable is stored there, stock information, loads of really useful information for operators. And I was heavily inspired by that, as you might be able to tell. And that's kind of where the whole inspiration for the M4J network database came from, was I want to keep track of every train that I've got on the network. And not just every train, but eventually every bus, tram, lorry, aircraft, ship, whatever it might be. I want to know where they all are, what they're operating on, you know, what route, what franchise, that kind of thing, and have all that information to hand. So that at any point I can just go on a UI, type in, you know, vehicle 65, and it will tell me where it is at any given time. And I literally mean where it is. So say, for example, it's 10 minutes past 3 in game time. I can look up where that train is supposed to be at 10 past 3, head over to that location, and hopefully find it. That's what I want this to be. I also want to name each train. And I don't mean things like Flying Scotsman and whatnot. I mean, you know, class numbers. So take a 150, for example. Have it be 150124, something like that. And then, again, in the database, have this train is operating on this franchise, this route, and it should be at this station in 2 minutes' time. If it's possible, and again, I've been told that it should be possible with an API, to link the game to the database, link the actual save file to the database, it will keep up to date, real time, where each train is. Or at least, you know, every 5-10 minutes, maybe every half an hour, something like that. It will update and in real time be able to tell you where trains are. That would be a good way of checking, you know, are trains being dispatched correctly? Are they in the right locations? All that good stuff too. It's really exciting for me to be able to actually get that up and running and working. There is a lot of work. Again, last week I set a deadline of December, and I don't mean to have the whole thing polished, finished, done, just to get a working version of the database that we can start to test with GWR. Again, George has very kindly said that we can use GWR as a test bed. And I think GWR is probably one of the busiest in terms of train movements lines on the entire network as well. So to have that as a test bed is very useful. And it will work a lot for freight as well. So right now, I have no idea where freight trains are at any time. But I want to know. So, for example, building these terminals right now, I'm kind of building them 4 tracks a piece and then hoping that they don't get clogged up, especially this one that you're seeing right now, because you might have noticed each of these tracks are bidirectional. And if they get clogged, it can cause chaos. So we've got the inner track and the outer track on both sides, neither of which are linked. They have balloon loops at either end, and that's for trains accessing the site. In the future, I might connect the 2 ends at the southern side together, just so that they're all connected. Really, you don't have to run through the center to get from one side to the other. That might be a good way of doing it. I don't actually know. We'll have to see. But if that does work, then great. If it doesn't, oh well. But yeah, the 4 tracks. I mean, there's 8 per terminal ish. I'm trying to think. What's the section? I suppose each section has 8 tracks, and then the 2 center roads, which are through roads. All of the 4 tracks for each cargo type are bidirectional, so trains can enter and leave in either direction. I have set it up though so that if you enter from the east, you have to leave through the west. That's not necessarily a crucial component, You could just say that trains run round and things like that. But for realism for now, I kind of wanted to go with like a Roro type system. And I think it works. I think it does all right. So I'm not too fussed about that. But yeah, if these get clogged, it'll be a pain. So to be able to have the information to hand, like knowing where these trains are, what time they're all due, because that's the other thing. I can just click on the terminal in the database, the Guard City South Freight Terminal, and it will tell me all the trains that are due in that day. Where they are, where they're coming from, where they're going to, all that stuff, and just have that information to hand. And it's so useful to work out things like occupancy. It's not just track occupancy, but also platform occupancy. If you know that you've only got 4 metal platforms and you've got 5 trains due, you're going to have to schedule them so that they're not getting in each other's way. Or you have some overflow, maybe. Who knows? But as I said, I'm happy with this design. It's not my favorite by any stretch, but I think it's the most practical one that I've built so far. The one that we have in the southeast corner of the map, that's kind of like the glory shot in terms of freight terminals. Everything's on islands. It's all very spread out so that trains don't get in each other's way and things like that. Then you've got my favorite, which is Morningpool Falls, which is a lot more compact and condensed. But that one is an absolute nightmare to operate, because now we've got long reserve as kind of like a default option with realistic braking. Trains are constantly queuing to get in and out of that terminal. Now, that is a timetabling issue. That could be fixed by going through the timetable and checking. I think it could also be fixed by routing trains through the southern entrance, because I think most of them go through the northern on the east side, the Morningpool Falls side. But overall, I love that terminal. I love sitting and watching it. But at the same time, I can definitely see where improvements would be made. And that's kind of what this is. It's a hybrid of the two. So it's designed to look like, I'm pretty sure it's Rudworth. I should have the game open and I can tell you. But I'm going to call it Rudworth, and if it's not called Rudworth, then I apologise. You know the one I mean, though. The one I built in the southeast corner of the map. That's the glory terminal. That's the good-looking one. And then you've got Morningpool Falls, which is the practical, or the more practical one. Actually, it's not really practical. I just said it wasn't practical. You know what I mean? The realistic one, I think, is probably a better way of saying it. And then you've got Guard City South here, which is the practical one. It's the hybrid of the two. It looks nice and it also functions well. We've got this one-way system that operates on either side. Trains always run on the left, of course, here in the UK. Apart from a couple of exceptions. I'm not going to go into those right now. And you can definitely see how this improves on both designs. So trains can enter and leave without conflicting movements, for a start. You've also got plenty of platform space for each industry type. So if you've got a container train and a goods train arriving at the same time, they don't necessarily go to the same place. That's one of the other problems with Morningpool Falls, is we end up with like 7 trains trying to go into those 5 platforms where container traffic goes. Because one of them is predominantly a metal train, but it also has one truck at the back that has a cargo container on it, and therefore it qualifies to go into that platform. And that has caused problems as well. So that will still happen here, but we have got more platforms to cope with goods and food and things like that. But it also means trains that are specifically there to carry manufacturing supplies can still access the terminal. They have their own set of platforms they can run into. And that's the difference between Morningpool Falls and here. But as I said, I love Morningpool Falls. The fact that it's not just a manufactured terminal either. It has coal, wood. I mean, it's just minerals, isn't it? I sort of throw them all together. So coal, iron ore, recyclables, scrap metal, bauxite. They all go to the same set of platforms in the centre. And I love the fact that it's right at the top of the hill there as well, which is something you don't have here. But I think the biggest problem with Morningpool Falls is the fact that it's single track most of the way round. I could add some more passing loops or just double the track in some places, and that might be the way to fix it. And I am going to look into that, believe me. But I do like the idea of trains waiting. It's kind of like the Folkestone branch. Not Folkestone branch, sorry, Felixstowe branch here in the UK. I think they're double tracking the majority of it now, because it used to be a case of you can only have something like 12 freight trains a day using it because it was single track most of the way. And it blocked junctions and things like that. And then, yeah, the last thing you see me build, again, I don't know if this is synced up, so apologies if it isn't, but the marshalling yard and the depot are starting to go in now. Now, the marshalling yard, I love the set here. I think it looks awesome, but it is a pain in the ass to work out sometimes because it has those extra tracks between each pair, and sometimes getting the junctions in and things like that can be a right pain. Again, I didn't have to have them all joined up. I could have just used buffer stops and things like that, but I tried to go with the realistic approach and it kind of backfired. I think there's one little bit that didn't quite work, but I've managed to make it so it looks like it works, but it also looks like it doesn't. And that's kind of how I fixed that one. Again, it's a really small thing. You probably don't notice it if you don't look for it. I know it's there, so I see it every time I look at it. But if you don't look for it, you don't see it, basically. And because of that, I think it's one of those things we just say, screw it, good enough. But yeah, the marshalling yard here, if the shunting patch became a thing, then you could imagine a train would pull into here first. So say it had engineering supplies at the front and then goods and food at the back. The train would actually pull into these reception sidings first, and then a little shunter would come along, take the engineering supplies trucks, and would take them to the engineering supplies terminal. And then another shunter would come along and take the food trucks to the food terminal. That would be awesome if that could work. Something like Transport Fever could potentially do that. Again, you can't shunt in Transport Fever 2, but you can split trains up a little bit more. So you'd have little shunters that take the goods to and from where they need to be. Excuse me. And then have a set of marshalling yards where it all comes together and then gets taken away. So that's about it for this project. This was a long one. This took 2 hours real time to actually build. Very little of it was spent dithering either. Like, there was a little bit towards the end here where I was trying to get the marshalling yard to work, and there was a couple of points during where I was trying to find which cargo would go where, because I was trying to group it still. So the oil and petrol are right next to each other, but the chemicals are a little ways away. Chemicals are actually next to wood. I'm not sure if that's a good idea, but also, having the containers at the top, the uranium in the top corner, where do you put the building materials, that kind of thing, trying to make them look like each one was set up for those types as well. I'm very, very happy with the overall result, though. Hopefully you guys like it too. I think this is one of my best builds for a long time, and it's nice to get back into these big builds again. I was just sat here at my desk, the missus was on the bed, and we just sat and chatted. She actually helped me out with this as well. I kept asking, like, should I put this here? Should I put that there? She doesn't know anything about railways or freight or anything like that. But just having a second pair of eyes, basically, to come up with ideas is a very, very useful thing to have. I highly recommend it, even if it's someone who has no interest in the subject whatsoever. You'll be surprised at the little details that they can pick up on as well. Very, very helpful. But yeah, I'm starting to get back into doing these time-lapse videos again. They're a lot of fun. I've got a little bit more time at the end of days now where I can sit down and record these. Transport Fever, it's nice to do live because I can get a sense of what I'm actually doing whilst building it live. OpenTTD, though, it's a bit more freeform. I like doing time lapses and sort of these big builds and then showing them off after. I think it looks a lot better doing it like that. And yeah, I rebuilt this depot for literally no reason other than I wanted to add these extra signs on the end and I didn't want to mess anything up. So we've got like these shunt limit signs, which I think for depots, again, are quite realistic. Imagine, so in real life, the locos would run to the depot and not the trucks, but because of the way the game works, the trucks have to come too. The wagons, I should say, to use the correct term. The wagons have to come too, so you have to have an 8-tile long depot. But having these little shunt limit signs and things just adds to that realism, I suppose. But yeah, that pretty much does it for this episode, guys. Let me know what you think of this down below. And again, if you want to get involved with the database, I really want to get this up and running soon. I know I keep saying that. I don't want to put pressure on people working on it because I know firsthand how that's not helpful. But I'm so looking forward to actually getting this working and being able to control the game from a database pretty much, which sounds really nerdy, and I hear it too, believe me. But having that extra element of the game, I think, would make a massive difference when it comes to running the network. And I think it's quite unique as well. I mean, as I said, I've been doing a lot of SEO recently, and one of the things that I'm excited about with this series is the fact that no one else is doing this. It makes it stand out. And hopefully then draws the views in. But that's not for me to talk about. Speaking of views, though, I will say that the one thing I have noticed, as I said, the channel stagnated quite a lot. My fault mostly. But the videos that you guys do watch, and I'm very, very grateful for that. So thank you very much for continuing to support the channel. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, and of course if you're enjoying the series. Drop those comments down below with ideas for future episodes and all that good stuff. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button. If you have already subscribed to the channel, thank you guys for your continued support. And until next time, I will see you soon.